and they're introduced. Take Fiddler on the Roof. All of the characters are introduced, and it has several I Want songs. It's got Matchmaker, Matchmaker, and If I Were a Rich Man, and all back to back. So again, the structure for this was somewhat unconventional. And so he did that. And Mencken, after thinking it through, he thought it was kind of a smart idea. And then we introduce all of the other Newsies with the great song Carrying the Banner, and the plot goes on. Well, in the original film, there's a reporter that gets behind the Newsies, and he was played by Bill Pullingham, and he's kind of the confidant, besides Meta Larkin, the stage performer, that really see that the Newsies have something to dispute. And he's a reporter for an opposing paper. And the original film had a little bit of a love interest for Jack. Davy, who becomes one of his pals in the course of the show, has a sister, and you see one of the deficiencies of the film in that the relationship between Jack and Davy's sister, and I can't even tell you what the character's name was, because again, she really doesn't function much other than she's part of the family. So in a musical, good musicals usually have a pretty strong love story. Sometimes it can be a character that's in love with himself or herself, but usually it's a relationship that can grow and the characters gain understanding. So the other smart thing that Harvey did was he made the reporter a female. And in the first scene that she and Jack have in the theater, it's very clear they're not on the same page. They want different things. She wants to be a reporter and be recognized for what she's doing, but she gets to the point where she sees what the Newsies are doing. And so their love interest develops, and then in the middle of the second act, Harvey throws a bombshell on you, and I'm not going to spoil that. Because the great thing about musicals are they can surprise you at times when you really don't think you're going to be surprised. So basically what Harvey did was he turned a screenplay that was flawed into a musical that community theaters and high school theaters and amateur and regional theaters can do. And they go back to Disney and present their work. And they're kind of excited because here's something that's actually going to work on stage. But we're never taking this to Broadway because it's intended for the audiences that have been clamoring to do Newsies on stage. So they go into partnership with a regional theater, Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey, which is maybe about 50, 60 miles from Manhattan and the Broadway district. And they start rehearsals. And It's directed by Jeff Calhoun, who is kind of a disciple of Tommy Tune, who is kind of like a god like Michael Bennett in the world of staging and putting together a musical. And the choreographer is Christopher Galletti, who had some credits. And it's very clear that he had watched the original choreography that Kenny Ortega did on stage and kept a lot of the style and the rhythms that go with the music. And I guess I'll backtrack and say my only criticism when we first saw Newsies was it's set in 1899, but there are pieces of the music that don't sound like 1899. And clearly the choreography is not the way that they would have danced in 1899. But they pulled it off. I mean, the choreography and the songs all have a certain rhythm that's consistent with the way that they're telling the story, more so on Broadway than in the original film. So, the show opens at the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. And the cast is told, well, no matter what, we're not going to Broadway. The show sells out, gets extended, and Disney kind of reconsiders that, well, maybe we should put this on Broadway to test it out and let people know that they can do Newsies. So the show is going to open on Broadway for 20 weeks only. And then everybody else can do it. Guess what? The show sells out. And who is Disney to turn down a sure thing?
They put their name right at the top.
Yeah. It's Disney's Newsies.
Exactly.
Even though Disney did not write it.
I know.
So they extend it, and they extend it, and they extend it, and it eventually runs for 3 years on Broadway. The other interesting thing is the original lead in New Jersey is an actor by the name of Jeremy Jordan, who's got a wonderful voice. If you've ever heard the cast album of Newsies, you know what I'm talking about. But he was cast in a musical, Bonnie and Clyde, which was going to open on Broadway at the same time. It was about the people that you know as Bonnie and Clyde, and it was a musical written by Frank Wildhorn, who, this is just an opinion, I am not really fond of the projects that he has worked, but there's some nice tunes in Bonnie and Clyde. So on my USB for the car, there's a couple of tunes from Bonnie and Clyde.